Welcome to Mooney Reads, and welcome to a book haul. I don't do a whole lot of just book haul videos. I think if anything, a lot of hauls get worked into my vlogs. But that's often because when I do buy books, it's like I'll buy one or two here or there because I work at a bookstore. And it's hard not to buy things when you have a discount and see books every single day. However, it was just yesterday, my birthday, so I went book shopping for that. I also went book shopping on Valentine's Day, so I have some things that are gifts and some things that I bought. Um, and I figured since, I thought about the fact that I could do like a birthday book haul, and since I'm here doing that, I might as well talk about more of the books that I got just throughout the first little bit of the year. Most of these are nonfiction, that there's also a selection of poetry, and I think maybe just a couple of fiction novels. I also wanted to say towards the beginning of this video that I am not talking about St. Martin's Press titles. I didn't pick up any St. Martin's Press titles, so there's nothing to really talk about. There are a few that I would like to get, but I'm likely not going to get them until I can actually talk about them because I like doing this. If you don't know about the St. Martin's Press media boycott, I'll leave an Instagram that you can check out that kind of talks about some of the issues with a particular employee spreading hate speech, and that employee directly working with influencers and the like. There are specific forms of accountability that are outlined that are largely pretty simple in my opinion. And yet St. Martin's Press has decided to not address them. So unfortunately that leaves some books that are really cool that I am just gonna have to wait to talk about until St. Martin's Press decides to get their stuff together. So I'm gonna start off with books that I've gotten and picked up just because I can, and I'm in a bookstore practically every day of the week. Then I'll talk about the books that I got during the AK Press sale, which I believe was in January, or the beginning of February. Then I'll talk about my Valentine's Day stack and my birthday stack. I think doing this also puts into perspective exactly how much adds up when you say, oh, I'll just buy one book today. Or more often it's two books, because I feel bad when the book doesn't have a friend. It's completely irrational and definitely like a weird kind of obsessive thinking thing that I picked up probably roundabouts when we came back from at work when a pandemic was still happening. But that's not for here. That's too much to share. But anyways, it adds up. It adds up when you put it all in a stack. And this is not even ARCs that I've grabbed at work. Granted, those would be collecting dust if I didn't grab them, so I can at least tell myself that. First, I'll talk about the poetry, then I'll talk about the nonfiction. So I picked up Plantains and Are Becoming by Melania Luisa Marte. This is from a Black Latino woman with family from the Dominican Republic and Haiti, I believe. I've actually started this one. It is the Queerthology Book Club's book pick for this month. So I'm getting through this one. The beginning was strong. I have mixed feelings in the middle, but we'll see how it turns out. I have Harlem Shadows by Claude McKay, who was a Harlem Renaissance era poet. And this is a collection, so from like the 1920s. I have A Fortune for Your Disaster by Hanif Abdurraqib, and this is the person who wrote A Little Devil in America, which I'm actually in the middle of. It's one of the books that I started at the beginning of last year and then stopped because just of everything that happened with my stepdad passing away. And I need to pick it back up, but it was very good, what I've read so far. And with the way that he writes, I am super, super excited to pick up some poetry. Then I have Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear by Mossab Abu Toha. I saw this on a few Palestinian literature recommendations. I saw some quotes from it. So I was really glad to just find it on the shelves in the store. And then finally, I have 10 Bridges I've Burnt by Brontez Purnell. This I saw Audrey from Perpetual Pages talk about on Instagram and had to get it. This is actually also an author that my partner likes, and I didn't put the two together until we were watching Audrey's wrap up, and they were like, oh, I didn't know that he had, another book out. So we both get to read this, and it should be really good stuff. Next, I have the nonfiction that I've picked up. So I have Imagination, a Manifesto by Ruha Benjamin. I finished this and it is everything. You should absolutely pick it up. The synopsis of it says that she is basically taking Toni Morrison's call to dream a little before you think. And it talks in depth about why imagination matters. And kind of looking at the idea of collective imagination and how we change kind of the idea of what the future looks like, especially when we're facing something so incredibly bleak. She does a really good job balancing the parts that are ideas and non-tangible along with the kind of actual tangible things, bringing in examples of things that have been done, for instance. It is just absolutely everything. She also brings in quotes from so many greats. I mean, we start off with Toni Morrison and it just gets fantastic. So highly recommend it, and I'm really glad I bought it. After that, I Survived Capitalism, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt by Madeline Pendleton. I follow them on TikTok, and they own, it actually probably says on the cover, yes, a clothing company called Tunnel Vision, and actually uses a model where everyone is paid the same, including her, who is on paper the CEO, and was one of the people that made the company. But it's kind of a more like socialist framework for how everyone gets paid, and goes out of her way to make it equitable, looking at where certain parts of the clothes come from and everything. And she talks a lot about like not just anti-capitalism. I'm not sure if she's an anarchist, or which particular flavor of leftism. My brain is saying anarchist, but that could be wrong. But this has, I think, a lot of what she kind of talks about in terms of how society is, what it's like to try to survive, with the economy being like it is, her experience, and like hacks, or that sounds lame, but like things that she's done to be able to survive in the hellscape. So this is the only thing I think that I have that would be found in a business section, like the modern, businessy type books. But the things that I've seen her talk about, I'm willing to give this one a try. After that, I have Unlearning Shame: How We Can Reject Self-Blame Culture and Reclaim Our Power by Devin Price. I loved Unmasking Autism. It was one of my favorite nonfiction books that I read a couple of years ago, the year that I read it. And I've seen him talk a lot about this topic, kind of looking at how society impacts us and how shame is used as a tool individually and systemically. So I'm super stoked to get to that one. Then the final book that I have that I just kind of picked up more or less on a whim. Sex with a Brain Injury on Concussion and Recovery by Annie Leontis. And this one I saw a couple of different people talk about online, including Nathan from Schizophrenic Reads, but I know maybe one or two other people as well. And I also saw that it was blurbed by Carmen Maria Machado. I flipped through and saw that some of it was a little more non-traditional. Like there's a part where it's got like a blackout. I don't know if blackout poetry, but like where some of the words are crossed out. So it makes me think that some of this might be written in kind of a creative way. I've seen really good things about it, so I went ahead and got it. So those are the books that I picked up at the store that I work at with my half off discount, which I think is relevant when you're looking at like big hauls and stuff like that. If I didn't work at a bookstore, generally speaking, I would not buy nearly as many books as I do. In fact, the times when I have not been working at a bookstore, thus not having a 40 or 50% discount, it's thrift books or book sales. Book sales, like the one that AK Press had earlier this year, and I bought a few things from it. I think it was their half off sale. So I got A Nation with No Map, Black Anarchism and Abolition by William C. Anderson. I've seen this on a lot of lists and it's been on my radar for quite a while, so I was happy to finally get to it. I think the subtitle tells you what it's about. Then I have No Passaran, Anti-Fascist Dispatches from a World in Crisis, edited by Shane Burley. This is an anthology on anti-fascism. Another one that I've seen on a lot of lists that I've been meaning to pick up. I was actually surprised at how big it was. I don't know why I thought it would be smaller, but I'm excited about it. And finally, I have Rattling the Cages, Oral Histories of North American Political Prisoners. So this is obviously another one that's a bunch of authors, a bunch of speakers. And this is super cool. I have been thinking intermittently about a couple of other oral histories of prisoners that I've seen around. Like I think there's one for Rikers and another one. And I saw this one during the sale, and I've seen a couple of people on Instagram talk about it since then. So I think it's going to be good. And those were the only three things that I got during that sale. Then next I have the stack that I got on Valentine's Day. I went to a local indie bookstore, White Oak Books, which is in downtown Vancouver. They're really cute, really good. The first time I went in there, I think was for or around Christmas, or maybe it was after then. I don't know what time it is. But I was very impressed. The vibe is immaculate. Going in the other day for Valentine's Day was also very nice. They have a really beautiful setup at the front of the store, and I just really enjoy their selection overall. There's a lot of really cool literary fiction that I don't really notice despite working in a bookstore, and their selection of political books is also really cool to me. Also their queer book section. There are a lot of pluses, so if you're in that area, I would highly recommend. So a couple of these were gifts to me, and then a couple of them were gifts from me to me. But I found them all on the same trip. That is A History of My Brief Body by Billy Ray Belcourt. I read A Minor Course last year and loved it. I listened to the audiobook, which I loved so much that I had to get a copy of it. And so I'm super excited to get into this. This is an essay collection. Billy Ray Belcourt is Indigenous and queer, and I assume that most of this is somewhat memoir adjacent. I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I'm super excited. I've also got The Boy with a Bird in His Chest, one of the 2 fiction books that are in this whole haul. I have seen this recommended a couple of different places. a couple of different Instagram pages that, like, I tend to trust the recommendation that I've seen mention it. This was quite a while ago, so I can't even remember who it was, but I just know that when I've seen it at the store, I've almost bought it so many times. It's out in paperback, so now I have a copy, and I'm really excited. It's kind of like speculative fiction, trans, good stuff. And the other fiction book that I got was You Dreamed of Empires by Alvaro Enrique. This is a speculative historical fiction that focuses on pre-colonial Mexico, kind of as it was being invaded. It's supposed to be really trippy, really weird, and really great. This is another one that Audrey from Perpetual Pages talked about, and I immediately went to the store and bought it. What can I say? They have taste. So, the final book that I got on my Valentine's Day book trip was Doppelganger by Naomi Klein. Naomi Klein is a pretty prominent leftist writer. The shock doctrine is one of her big ones. She's also had a lot of other ones that look at climate change and the like. And this is her memoir specifically about being so confused with Naomi Wolf, who started out as like a feminist writer. I think The Beauty Myth was a really big part of the feminist movement, about kind of cluing a lot of people into some of the issues. And from that point, she kind of leaned more like neoliberal and has fallen kind of down the rabbit hole to some weird conspiracy stuff. And so these two people have very different perspectives, very different ideas. Yet she's getting conflated, so she kind of digs deep into that experience. I have started this on audiobook. I think I'm a couple of chapters in at this point, and I love it. I actually stopped listening to the audiobook so that I could get a physical copy, because I know that I'm going to want to make notes and stuff like that. Finally, I have the books from my birthday. So most of these were bought with birthday money. But I was also surprised with a trip to Powell's. My partner and their parents drove us down there, and we had a good time. It was kind of crowded, but it is literally the largest independent bookstore in the United States, as far as I know. It's 3 stories and like a full city block. So we found some corners where there were not too many people in, which is why I have all nonfiction. I didn't even look at any of the fiction. But I had a really good time. Their selection is just so good. And I specifically was on the lookout for stuff that I didn't see every day, because if I did see it every day, I could get it at a discount. But there were just so many gems. So I'll start out with the one astrology book that I got, which is Planets in the Houses by Robert Peltier. I should probably look that up. I have seen his books recommended before. I've actually wanted to kind of dig in and learn a little bit more about houses and astrology. And I've done a little bit of reading. They are included in some other books, but having a book that centers on this is good. They also had Planets in Aspect there too, which was also a used copy. Kind of back and forth about whether or not I should have gotten it, because I know that houses is what I wanted to focus on, but it would be so cozy to have more of the set, you know. But I am excited to dig into this one. Then I have Decolonize Drag. This is a newer book that kind of looks at drag, and in particular our more recent kind of cultural understandings around it and stuff like that. It looks super neat, and I haven't seen this anywhere. I think that it'll pair really nicely with some of the drag history books that I have. I also have a couple of books from Rue Girls on top of Sasha Voller's that I read, but I think it'll be interesting to read this alongside those, just because I know this is obviously going to be critical of RuPaul. Who's not critical of RuPaul? Um, but anyways, um, I think this one is going to be really good. I read a little bit of the introduction. Very promising. Then I have A Feminist Theory of Violence, which I feel like I've seen around but haven't really looked into. I read the blurb, and I think it's going to be really good. It's kind of looking at how the way that violence has been framed in a lot of feminist conversations doesn't really take into account systemic violence via things like colonization very seriously, or like, you know, why are all the men violent? I think there's that to look at too, but this kind of, I think, looks at more systems in an interesting way. So I'm excited about this. I'm probably going to listen to a couple of podcasts that she's on to, because when I picked this up, my partner said that they just listened to the author on a podcast. So I love that. After that, I have Am I Trans Enough? How to Overcome Your Doubts and Find Your Authentic Self by Aloe Johnston. And this title sounds very self-helpy, and I'm sure it has those elements, but the reason that I actually got it was I looked at the blurb because I was kind of iffy. Sometimes the self-helpy stuff is a lot of fluff, but it looks like this author actually did a lot of research into kind of internalized transphobia. So I'm really excited to see kind of like the research part of this. Then I have Palestine Hijacked: How Zionism Forged an Apartheid State from River to Sea. The subtitle kind of tells you what it's about. It goes through a lot of different documents to talk in detail about the occupation. So it's going to be a really intense history book. And then finally, I have Making Our Future: Visionary Folklore and Everyday Culture in Appalachia. And this one I just happened upon. I wasn't really planning on looking at the mythology section. I'm glad that we happened upon that section, because it also had some cool like religion books that are now on my radar for my cults TBR, because the religion and mythology are in the same little room. But I've actually got a TBR that's looking at the South and Appalachia, particularly looking at labor and liberation kind of in that area. And I think this is going to be a really cool addition. I think that also like making our future and using folklore to like fit in with some of it is going to be really great to read after having read Imagination: A Manifesto. And this was also blurbed by Elizabeth Catt, who wrote a book that I happen to have on my shelf behind me, What You're Getting Wrong About Appalachia, which is a really cool like refutation of a lot of what they talk about in Hillbilly Elegy, and talks about some of the actual history of the area. So this person giving a blurb to a book, I'm very inclined to read it, and I think it's just going to be a really cool addition to my current reading plans. So those are some of the books that I've gotten throughout the beginning of the year, and for my birthday and other things. If you've read any of these, definitely let me know about it down in the comments below. And thank you all so much for watching. Bye.